Hello and welcome back to an episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. Should the UN carry out a wide-scale attack against the belt? That is the question we are going to ask in today's video. Season 5 spoilers of The Expanse on the way. There, I said it. Don't yell at me.
Dude, just that you asked the question about if the UN should attack the belt or not makes me think that there's a reason in the show that the UN would attack the belt, and thus your first line spoiled the show. I hate you, die, The Expanse is ruined for me.
Also, first, I think I owe it to you, the audience, to hold a moment of silence for our June, the good professor of whatever and constant virtue signaler who recently perished, leaving our eternal UN Seki, Christian of Vassarala, a widow. And silence. Okay, that's enough. So sorry you got hit with the giant space rock, Arjun. We're gonna miss you. Anyway, I suppose this video is somewhat of a follow-up of sorts to the video we did a couple weeks ago in which I asked whether or not Marco Inaros was right to attack the Earth with asteroids. In that video, we didn't really debate morality as much as we did practicality and reason. And ultimately, we concluded that while there was some justification for his aggression, executing such a devastating attack is unlikely to result in the outcome that Marco and his crew are hoping for. Once you kill millions of people, you kind of also kill the whole point of negotiation. And for the UN to now submit to the belt's demands would be akin to condoning the attack. They simply can't do it, lest they want to project their weakness to their own citizens and their enemies. So it's only natural that in today's video we ask, well, what now? Earth hasn't been conquered, and if the UN isn't going to now play ball with Inaros, then how should they respond to Marco's attack? After all, any reasonable person would agree that his actions amount to an act of war, and if you don't, I'd hate to see your version of war. In the penultimate episode of Season 5, entitled Winnipesaukee, whatever, the UN has just carried out an attack on Palace Station, a Belter stronghold that is home to various Belter splinter groups. Vassarala, the proponent of peace she is, was not informed of the plans to execute the strike, lest she should object. And at a subsequent Security Council meeting, the Council's members debated how to proceed following the attack on Palace. On one hand, we have acting UN Secretary General David Pastor and his supporters who are eager to conduct a large-scale campaign against Belter territories. He doesn't just want to punish Marco Inaros, he wants to send a message to the entire belt. Meanwhile, Vassarala just ain't cool with this.
The only thing we should be discussing is how to spin this strike as a limited military objective, and make it clear that we are not at war with the belt.
She desperately wants to convey to the wider belt that the Earth is not at war with them, and that the Palace Station attack was a limited military strike before things get out of hand. Vassarala is careful to distinguish between Belters and Marco Inaros.
Inaros is an extremist, a rogue element, as much of a danger to his own people as he is to us.
She wants to take out Inaros, but doesn't want innocent Belters to be punished for his actions. Her plan is to play the peaceful Belters against the hostile ones.
The Belters are not one nation. We can exploit that. We can ally with certain factions, enlist them in common cause.
Of course, this proposal implies two things. One, that when push comes to shove, the Belters caught in between all this madness won't betray the UN and help Inaros, something that Pastor and his supporters aren't willing to chance. And two, that Inaros' attack is possibly having a positive effect on the larger belt, even if Inaros himself isn't getting what he wants. In the video I did on Inaros' asteroid attack, I took some time to discuss how his aggressive action could actually lead the UN to cooperate with the more mainstream factions of the belt as a result of a sort of good cop, bad cop dynamic. I ultimately felt that his attack was too overbearing to result in anything good for the belt, though if a Vassarala were to get her way here, it would. Meanwhile, Pastor believes that developing coalitions with Belter factions and turning them against Inaros would take too much time.
That kind of diplomacy takes time which we can't afford to waste. Our job, my job, is to make our people safer and to reduce the enemy's ability to hurt us as quickly as possible.
He and his supporters instead want to strike Ceres Station next.
I think we should hit Ceres Station. It's the biggest port in the belt.
They see Ceres Station as a vital target to hit because if they take out this major Belter trade port, then Marco will have to retreat to the outer planets to resupply, thus giving the UN the upper hand. This idea is of course an absolute no-go for a Vassarala, as Ceres has millions of innocent civilians on it, and morally speaking, Vassarala is not willing to stain the UN's hands for the sake of taking out Marco Inaros.
There are millions of people in Ceres, hundreds of thousands of children.
It should be said that Avasarala has spent some time traveling through space and meeting Belters, and so the lives on Ceres mean something to her. They're not just abstractions, but humans, just like Earthers. In the end, Pastor opts to strike Ceres, and so Avasarala resigns in protest, taking some other council members with her. So now let's backtrack and try to analyze everything that went on at the meeting. First off, not consulting Avasarala before striking Pallas was a mistake. Always consult Avasarala. No, seriously, neglecting to at least hear one's critics out before acting is oft a fool's folly. In the meeting, Pastor and his supporters express a desire to execute further strikes against the belt and advocate for such action on the basis of reason.
I am truly sorry for your loss, but we can't let emotion make these choices. We have to be rational and objective.
In Pastor's view, his job is to protect the people of Earth. And if he just sits on his hands following the murder of millions of Earthers, then he would be condoning the actions of the belt and putting Earth in further danger. Pastor's perspective dictates that while, yes, innocent Belters will die in the strikes to come, such action is necessary because it will result in the best end for Earthers. The hostile Belter factions will not continue to think that they can attack Earth with no consequence. If the UN only targets Marco Inaros, as Avasarala suggests, then the consequences the belt faces for Inaros' attack are fairly absorbable. And maybe other Belter factions will even start thinking, hey, maybe we can have our way with Earth. On the other hand, if Earth attacks the belt aggressively, then the massive Belters, not wanting to pay the price for Marco Inaros' actions, might rise up against Inaros and demand he cease his violence and turn himself in. Thus, Pastor sees striking the belt as a rational policy. However, while he might have implied that Avasarala is acting on emotion, I don't think that's quite accurate. Sure, Avasarala's feelings are coming into play here, but there can be very good and practical reasons for not taking military action in any situation. For instance, Avasarala says this:
For every partisan we killed, we made 10 more.
Now, I'll be honest with you, I hate this sort of simplistic argument, and I don't think this was her best play here. Yes, of course, bombing the crap out of your enemies from afar can engender even greater extremism in those people unfortunate enough to be on the wrong end of said attacks. But are you then never supposed to attack your enemies for fear of making even greater enemies? No, there's a balance one needs to strike between being necessarily aggressive and restrained, not creating too many new enemies while at the same time establishing a credible threat of force against your current ones. That said, maybe this is an instance where rather than attack the belt, the UN could maybe offer incentives to the more amenable Belter factions, such as recognition, in exchange for refusing to support Inaros. I don't know what the exact right amount of force to use here is, and I don't know if the UN can make allies out of enough Belter factions to make a difference. But my point is that both sides of the argument, the Pastor side and the Avasarala side, can be defended as rational. And I have some leanings both ways. Listen, the Earth is in a desperate position. It just got hit with a near-apocalyptic Kevin Costner gonna show up type of attack, and it needs to act swiftly in order to ensure the safety and prosperity of its citizens, the Sol system-wide. Attacking Belter territories cannot be out of the question. Given a strike on Ceres, Inaros may indeed be forced to retreat because of a lack of supplies, which might mean that the lives of millions of Earthers are saved. So some sort of assault on Ceres could be a good move. However, I'd wonder if it's possible for the UN to take Ceres without bombing the entire station. I mean, it's a major trading port. The UN has connections there and knows its ins and outs. It sounds like Pastor wants to just light the place up, and I'm not sure that's necessary in order to take it over. I would be willing to hear arguments that occupying Ceres would cost too much in blood and treasure to be feasible. Something we also have to weigh, though, is that Marco Inaros is a psychopath. He seems to be willing to continue his onslaught despite any and all efforts to stop him. At the beginning of the episode, he is briefed on the outcome of an assault he had ordered, one that resulted in the destruction of a UNN cruiser and the retreat of another, but which also saw many Belters die during the mission. And what was Inaros' response?
The Free Navy mourns our allies who died in this valiant effort. But it was worth the price.
This is not a guy who is going to close up shop just because Earth is killing Belters on Ceres and Pallas. So yes, maybe an attack on Ceres gets him to retreat because of a supply shortage. But what if it doesn't? What if he has other sources he can go to for supplies? Then the Earth just killed millions of innocent people for nothing and possibly exacerbated the UN belt conflict. It's really hard to decide what's right here, but I think ultimately, while yes, Ceres is the proper target to focus on, it's too hard to justify, as Admiral Delgado puts it, a hit on the station that could lead to the deaths of so many innocent Belters when Inaros is just so unpredictable and maniacal. But I do think they have to do something about Ceres. They can't continue to let Inaros resupply there because another attack on Earth could be coming at any moment. And Pastor and his supporters are right in wanting to prevent that from happening at all costs, because another asteroid hitting Earth would be the worst price to pay of all. Anyways, this is a confusing situation, but if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. Please do chime in and help me figure this out down in the comments below. I look forward to what you have to say. Remember to subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.